Well, your board requested that, that county council will respond to 4 specific questions that were posed by Director Najarian concerning the preparation of the environmental documents for the SR710 project. We have provided a written memorandum to your board responding to those questions. You know, if you wish further discussion, further questions, we can talk about those, without waiving the confidentiality of the document that was submitted.
Are there any comments from sir?
Thank you, Mr. Safer. But the one point I want to raise is that this almost didn't make it on the agenda. So there was a little bit of last-minute scrambling Friday to have this posted on Monday at the appropriate time. So to the extent that that happens to me or to any other director that puts forth a valid motion, I want staff to be sure that there is not a miscommunication between what was said. And we were actually pulling transcripts from the meeting to say, was this really a motion? Was this, etc. So I appreciate getting it on, but let's try and avoid a last minute falling off the agenda. And there is a memo, and I appreciate that. Is that attorney-client privilege?
Yes.
And who holds that privilege?
The board.
As a whole?
Correct.
No, I haven't, and I haven't. For the record, I haven't transmitted this to anyone. Am I allowed to discuss? I mean, so can we discuss that in any way, or this is solely? Okay.
Well, we can discuss the issues. We can't discuss the memo itself, but we can discuss the issues.
Well, let me then say, do you agree with the memo? Have you changed your mind? There was a memo out, and it was put out a couple days ago.
The memo has my initials on it.
And that fully reflects the state of the legal opinion of Metro at this point.
The memo responds to the specific questions that you asked.
Memo that you signed, did you agree with what you signed?
The memo responds to the questions that you asked. If you have other questions or related questions, they may not be addressed by that memo. But,
I mean, this isn't a booby trap. Najarian talks about the 710 tunnel and everyone. I'm not making a lot of friends on the board with the 710 tunnel. I mean, let's talk about that. But this was important so we as a board could determine what our relationship is with Caltrans. And if we're gonna, skin our knuckles on this, let's make sure that we're doing it for that reason and we're not overshadowed and superseded by Caltrans. And you do address several of the issues in the memo. I appreciate that. And
May I suggest that if we're going to discuss the content of the memo, that we do it in closed session?
And I'm not discussing that.
Okay.
I'm
I just
thanking
want
you
to
for
keep us
that.
clean, man.
And I appreciate that. So is that why it wasn't on the agenda? That because it was confidential, attorney-client privilege?
no, what had happened is,
And why is it attorney-client privilege? Let me just ask you that.
because you asked the question of county council, so I was responding to the questions in a written memorandum. Staff was, quite frankly, staff was going to prepare a memo, its own memo. I told them that I could prepare the memo because it was addressed to me, and that's how it ended up happening this way. I suspect if staff wanted to put something on the agenda, with its own responses, it certainly could have done that. But to protect the confidentiality of a request made of council, I prepared a written memorandum and submitted it to the board.
Okay, I have an item which is before the board, which does this violate attorney-client privilege if I address certain items that are addressed in a memo?
Yes.
Let me do this. Rather than have an open discussion on this, let me keep this off for the moment and speak to you privately. And if perhaps I still believe that we need to make this open in terms of a motion, I will address that with you and get your advice as to the confidential nature of such an opinion and where we can go from here.
Okay.
I mean, again, just the bottom line is, where are we as a board in terms of our rights and obligations with Caltrans on this tunnel issue? That was the only point of this, and I will remain silent now. Thank you, Mayor.
I would suggest maybe if we broaden the conversation a bit to ask, beyond the narrow legal issues, what are the practical issues which describe our relationships as opposed to the narrow legal issues? So if you don't mind, if you'd like, I'll join that conversation with you.
Yes, I would like to do that, and we can maybe sort out.
If you'd like, I'd join it too.
We can sort out the details before we bring it to the board and just have an ongoing discussion.
Director Fasano?
Yes, Madam Chair, actually, I want to agree with Director Najarian on something he raised. Actually, it's not about the 710, but at the, I believe it was the last Operations Committee meeting, I had requested a legislative matrix back to the board too, which I don't believe we received. So I think there are some issues on follow-up when items are brought forward in committees. I think it's important for us to have a comprehensive view on legislation. So I share Director Najarian's concerns from a process standpoint. I want to thank legal counsel for the memorandum. I think it did clarify some of the concerns for me that have been raised, and I appreciate Metro's efforts in terms of facilitating a discussion and review of potential options for the 710 project moving forward. Thank you. I would like the ledge matrix by tomorrow if I can't get it before today's meeting, which obviously I will not.
Okay.
And just follow up.
We still have many people who want to speak on this item. So buckle your seatbelts, I guess. Item number 60, Dr. Richard Schneider. Sir, Doctor.
Good morning, honorable board members. I am Dr. Richard Schneider, Mayor of South Pasadena. In 2008, Measure R listed the 710 tunnel as one of the projects to be funded. The cities of South Pasadena and La Cañada sued, contending this was a pre-commitment to a project before CEQA review. County councils Andrea Orden and Charles Saver argued successfully that the tunnel was not a CEQA project. The Metro had the authority to amend the Measure R expenditure plan. That Measure R was not a commitment to any project and not committed to the 710 tunnel. CEQA does not apply to a decision not to carry out a project. The Metro Board can determine the tunnel cannot be pursued as a feasible alternative until its financial feasibility is established. I request that the 710 tunnel be eliminated from the EIR and dropped from further consideration, or the EIR should be delayed until the tunnel's financing is assured. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm Dr. Marina Cabestrian, Mayor Pro Tem of South Pasadena, and thank you, Honorable Chair and members of the board. Mr. Family, welcome Mr. Garcetti and new board members. South Pasadena is pleased that the board is considering responses to questions posed by Director Najarian to County Council concerning preparation of the environmental documents of the SR 710 gap closure. We would like to point out that Caltrans is indisputably the lead agency as delegated by the FHA under NEPA, and for this reason it is incomprehensible that there is not a memorandum of understanding between Caltrans and Metro as to who is responsible, accountable. To spell that out is very important, and that's just 2 years into the process where that responsibility is not spelled out. We would also like to point out that Metro is not bound to fund a tunnel because of Measure R. The Court of Appeals has agreed with us that the North Gap closure certainly does not have to be a tunnel alternative. This lack of commitment is appropriate since to date there are no cost estimates for the tunnel, whether tolls will be used, whether trucks will be included. We urge you to get more information before moving on. Thank you.
I'm going to make a suggestion and ask some of you, excuse me. We are not voting on this today. We have more information that we need to get pulled together. I'm asking if some of you wouldn't just as soon wait to be heard when it's going to be more timely. If not, I'm happy to go through the litany here, but understand there will not be a vote on this today.
I'd like to submit the letter.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, let me help you with your attempt
Thank
to
you.
streamline the meeting. I do appreciate, it appears that there's several dozen speakers here that to the extent that your points are repetitive, come up and say that you agree with the previous speaker. To the extent that your points are new points that have not yet been raised, please feel free to use your card. But if it's just a repetition, stand up either with the person that's reflecting your remarks, or come to the podium and say, I do agree with the remarks made by so-and-so, just so we can move this along. This isn't the fight here. I don't know. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Oh, that's okay. So based on that, may I ask any of those of you who agree with the first two speakers to raise your hand and perhaps forego the opportunity to speak? Well, I see one person. Thank you very much. Okay. Another one. Thank you. We'll continue with this, but I invite you who chose not to speak this time to come back and speak when it is an action item. And you'll have to tell me who you are because I've moved these all around.
Madam, my name is Don Justin Jones. I live in the Republic of Eagle Rock.
Okay?
Thank you very much. I'm here to speak to the new mayor, Mr. Garcetti. I'd like to remind him of how we felt 6 years ago after the Iowa primary came in. Remember that? We felt that new spirit of change in the air. We expect to see the same thing here. I'm here because I represent the Caltrans tenants, over 500 families. We want to call your attention to the audit that was done in Caltrans' activity. And ask yourself if you could trust an agency where the audit of the state of California shows that there was corruption, theft of public monies, fraud, cronyism, nepotism, contract rigging, obstruction of justice, and destruction of records. Mr. Garcetti, we've given these audits to members of your staff before, to members of the staff here. So far, we received no pushback. We need to ask ourselves, if we cannot trust the state of California, who is defrauding the city and the county of $24 million a year from the rent of the house, how can we trust them to build a tunnel?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Chairman, thank you for your courtesy.
Thank you. Jessica Duoff, LA Chamber of Commerce, Damien Goodman.
Good morning.
Just a moment, please.
The point of order I was going to raise is the fact that this shouldn't even be on the public agenda. That's what I don't understand. Because these folks are commenting something they haven't seen or talked about, and I understand that, but this is a response back to its attorney-client privilege. It should have been our closed session agenda, not on the public agenda. It's absolutely inappropriate to have this on the public agenda. But go ahead and take testimony. You're done.
On the agenda.
Under public comment, not under an item we didn't.
Help me out here. That's what we paid you for.
Yeah, the item is on the agenda.
The item's on the agenda now, but it should not have been. If it's related to attorney-client privilege.
I understand.
Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Duboff. I'm here on behalf of the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. I'll simply say that we urge you to remember your responsibility to measure our voters, a measure which passed with support from over 2/3 of LA County because it outlined a detailed plan to residents regarding where exactly the dollars would go. Therefore, it is imperative that you ensure that the environmental review study currently underway is completed so that the public, Caltrans, and Metro have all the facts to make informed decisions about what is best for the region.
Thank you.
Damien Goodman for the Crenshaw Subway Coalition. I just wish that we could get a tunnel on Crenshaw that you didn't care about the cost. It's 11 blocks, it's $60 million, and it solves your lawsuit as opposed to put you on a path toward a lawsuit. So the striking, but I want to talk a little bit about this attorney-client thing. First of all, I don't know what your county council is telling you about us. We've got a former trial attorney of the Civil Rights Division, former education director of Mount F, former employment law rights attorney who is our judge. That's who will hear our case on the 15th. And I'm saying that because as is the 710 community, as is the downtown Prudential community, as is the Wilshire community, it seems that this agency has an appetite for lawsuits. If it's extremely more expensive, tell the public that. Let the public know that. Have that conversation. What are you hiding? Why is it necessary for these type of discussions to take place in closed session? Thank you.
Thank you. Sam Burgess, to be followed by Arnold Sachs.
Get him, Sam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sam Burgess. I was going to speak on one point. I will speak on another, specifically the attorney-client privilege, which I consider to be an insult to the public. For over 3 years now, we, the public, have been to almost every meeting this body has held on the 710 issue. We've continually asked who was in charge, who was going to make the final decision. Finally, Mr. Najarian was able to get this issue, this question on the agenda. And what happens? We have a lawyer coming up here and saying the public does not have a right to know what we're talking about and what our decision is. That is, if not illegal, quite insulting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Mr. Sachs, to be followed by Richard Helgeson.
Yes, thank you again, Arnold Sachs. I'd like to just two things. Somebody mentioned about financing for the tunnel. Financing is tied to the change that's going to be presented to the state legislation regarding the change from the 2/3 majority to the 55% for special elections. That's where your funding is going to come from, because that's what they want to push for. We get that 55%. Money will go just like Measure R. You know, they said $40 billion. They're never even going to get close to that. And then a question of county council. Question of county council. Why is county council the council for Metro? I believe Commissioner Najarian, you're not a county council. You're not a supervisor. I believe Madam Dubois, you're not a county supervisor. I believe Pam O'Connor's not a county supervisor. I believe Mr. Leahy is not a supervisor either. Why is county council involved in a non-county agency giving advice?
Sachs. Thank you.
And so are you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs.
Good morning. I'm Richard Helgeson. I'm a resident of South Pasadena. I'm also a retired government attorney, and I retired, yes. And I used to represent a lot of governmental entities and joint projects. And I was surprised to find that there is no MOU on this. I don't know if that's absolutely true, but that's the rumor that's going around. My first advice to all governmental entities entering into a project with another governmental entity is you need a formal, definitive, written agreement that lays out the roles of the agencies, the lines of responsibility, how specified contingencies are going to be carried forth. And it not only promotes clarity, but it promotes transparency. And Measure R monies are a sacred trust, and if you're going to carry them out, you should be doing that pursuant to a formal written instrument. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Helgeson. Eric Rowan, to be followed by Rosa Miranda, and I'm not sure how this relates to the item, but
Buenos días, mi nombre es Rosa Miranda y soy miembro del Sindicato de Pasajeros.
Good morning, my name is Rosa Miranda, I'm a member of the Bus Riders Union.
Estoy aquí el día de hoy uniéndome al llamado de los residentes del noroeste de Los Ángeles y del Valle de San Gabriel para oponerse al proyecto del túnel del 710.
I'm here today to join the call from the residents of Northeast LA and the San Gabriel Valley to oppose the SR 710 tunnel.
El sindicato de pasajeros estamos pidiendo restricciones profundas en el uso del auto privado e incluso un moratorio en la construcción de la autopista y carreteras. Estas políticas son críticas para romper la adicción del uso de los angelinos.
The Bus Riders Union is calling for deep big restrictions on the use of the private automobile, including a moratorium on all construction of highway and freeway projects. These policies are critical to break LA's addiction to the single passenger automobile.
También limpia nuestro aire mortal y dado la crisis del cambio climático para reducir las grandes cantidades del carbono que dañan el clima mundial.
Also, this will help clean up our air. This is necessary to clean up our air, and given the crisis of climate change, to reduce the enormous carbon footprint that damages the global climate.
Las tarifas propuestas que el túnel Las tarifas propuestas para el uso de este túnel asegura que el túnel estará vacío y sea un fracaso costoso y solo dejando grandes riesgos de seguridad, salud y medio ambiente.
The tolls proposed for this tunnel will basically guarantee that it will remain empty and will be a failure, a costly failure that will only leave the communities with very big risks of safety, security, and risk to the environment.
El costo millonario de este proyecto amenaza prioridades de transporte público. En lugar de túnel, necesitamos servicio las 24 horas del día, 7 días a la semana y transporte gratuito.
The cost,
From your time, Mr. Roman?
I'll defer.
Quickly, she went over.
Okay, so I'll defer my time to finish. So the $1 billion cost of this project threatens other transportation priorities for the county. In place of this tunnel, we call on you to create a bus system that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with low or free fares and dedicated lanes for buses all throughout LA. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Roman, was that yours as well?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. John Walsh. Be followed by Joanne Knuckles, Sylvia Plummer, Diana Mahmood, Dr. Bill Sherman, Jan Suju, and Dr. Tom Williams.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. I've been addressing this board, the LACTC, the RTD, on this issue of the 710 extension. You know, I think I was about 17 years old the first time I got up here. Okay, the older people that were up here 30, 40 years ago, they're dead. These people here who are against the 710 freeway are their great-grandchildren. And I want to say that if God Almighty said John Walsh can live till the day that they start building the tunnel, if that's what God said, he will die on the day that he start building the tunnel, I say, thank God you have granted me immortality. Because you're never going to build this damn thing, you're just going to do studies. And great, we don't need it. HollywoodHighlands.org.
I'll make an amendment that we commence construction tomorrow.
Joanne Knuckles, be followed by Sylvia Plummer.
Joanne Knuckles, representing the No 710 Action Committee. Opposition to the 710 tunnels is strong, determined, undeniable, and has grown exponentially over the last 10 years. Last year, at 5 meetings in August, one of which was the Los Angeles City Council, 3 in Pasadena, 1,700 people showed up to protest the tunnels being studied in the 710 EIR in opposition to the tunnels. The political reality is that MTA could never get political support nor agreements to build the tunnels from Los Angeles, South Pasadena, and Pasadena, the cities directly affected who oppose the 710 tunnels. The other non-tunnel alternatives being studied would make a much better preferred alternative and could be supported by the cities and communities. So my question now is, when will this issue come back to the board when we can speak to it again?
Thank you very much. Sylvia Plummer?
I'm Sylvia
I'm
Plummer
sure you'll know
from Pasadena, and I would like to know why there isn't an MOU between Caltrans and Metro for this project. Also, there are MOUs for other projects like the High Desert Corridor, so why isn't there one for ours? My concern with this project is the 2 double-decker 60-foot diameter tunnels Metro wants to build. As of today, there's no such tunnels that exist on this earth that are that size. Why are you going to build it here? There is no money to build the tunnels, so public-private partnership investors will provide that money. That means tolls to pay them back. The tunnel is not the solution. This outdated, historically controversial construction project guarantees to deliver more congestion. The tunnel's high tolls will ensure that the tunnel remains empty and local streets jammed. Legally, I believe that the Metro Board is free to determine now that it doesn't want the tunnel option. Do the right thing and remove the tunnel option.
Thank you. Dr. Bill Sherman, Jan Wait, okay. Dr. Sherman was standing up there. Okay. You are?
My name is Diana Mahmood, and like my husband, I have spent many years in public service. I have spent decades providing legal advice to the City of Los Angeles and its Department of Water and Power and Metropolitan Water District on public works issues. Agenda item number 60 addresses a fundamental issue of the relationship between Metro and Caltrans. And that issue arises because of transparency. One response is cloaked in attorney-client privilege. It's quite ironic that the issue of transparency regarding the nature of the relationship between the two entities is in fact discussed in a manner that is not transparent. It only further obfuscates the question. Agreements are necessary not only to delineate responsibility, but to establish accountability. With so much money at stake and so many other potential uses of the funds, I strongly urge you to push for an MOU.
Thank you. Dr. Bill Sherman, be followed by Jan Suhu, is that correct? And then Trish Gossett.
Dr. Bill Sherman, South Pasadena. I just want to know who to sue when this biased EIS is finished and we take it to court. Is CH2M Hill going to pay the attorney's bill? Is the Metro Board going to take the responsibility for this flawed study? Will they use Measure R funds to mount the defense? Or is it going to be Caltrans who will defend Metro's study in front of a judge? CH2M Hill and Metro staff have evaded questions on why and how they added new alternatives, or variations as they like to call them, without a vigorous performance comparison. Perhaps a highway through San Rafael or up Los Robles would perform better. South Pasadena and other co-plaintiffs, including the Sierra Club, stopped this project with injunctions in 1973 and 1999. These injunctions remain in place. We are 2 for 2. How is the 710 Gap project doing? CHM2 Hill and Metro staff won't answer me, but they can't refuse to answer to you, the Metro Board, or to a person wearing a black robe. Welcome, Mayor Garcetti.
Thank you. And Suhu and Trish Gossett.
Hi, my name is Janet Suhu. I'm here to represent the No 710 Action Committee, but I'm actually a resident of another city formally opposed to any extension of the 710 to the 210, and that is the city of La Cañada Flint Ridge. This is an issue of real interest to the public. In the past 2 weeks, we've attended 4 Metro-sponsored meetings at which we've heard 3 different accounts of the roles and responsibilities for this study, all by Metro staff. As a result, we remain unclear on several key issues. Who will make the decision about the preferred alternative, and who will be the responsible party in the event of litigation? We're concerned that staff has not submitted for public inspection the report they were mandated by this board to produce. It seems consistent with a pattern of avoidance, or to be nice and use Director Fasana's words, lack of follow-through, that we believe is detrimental to the robust and transparent process. In February, staff submitted the alternatives analysis report as a receive and file rather than an action item, and therefore it didn't come here.
Thank you. Trish Gossett to be followed by, thank you. Thank you. Dr. Tom Williams.
Dr. Tom Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council, and thank all the poor people from LA on the board that are going to have to suffer with 710. 710, Memorandum of Understanding. Why isn't the California Transportation Commission included in this and make sure that they concur with the Memorandum of Understanding if it is ever formalized? The Memorandum of Understanding should also include errors and omissions. Who's responsible for those? Because we see a lot of them. Overruns. For the Big Bertha up in Seattle, the cost overruns were going to be the responsibility of the local government, that is the city of Seattle. They were really upset over that part of their memorandum. So I hope it doesn't come back to LA City or Alhambra or Pasadena. Thank you.
Mr. Fasana wanted to speak.
At this point, I just appreciate the opportunity to see, to get the report back. I would hope that the study would proceed along, and that when we actually receive their study back. I mean, I think there's a lot of presumptions on what it's going to say and what the outcome will be, and that it's already flawed. But I think there's certainly some merits as well that you don't hear today, or you haven't heard today from the public, of why you would want to connect some of these stems of our highway system and to relieve some of the pressure on some of the other highways, such as the 101 and such as the 5, that flow through critical junctures downtown, and even to relieve pressure off of South 710. So I would hope that we at least have the opportunity to get a study before us to where we can actually consider all 5 of the alternatives and then determine where we can move forward. I don't know that we need to continue on a monthly basis to have various discussions on memoranda that have come with our legal counsel to others. I think we need to let the process move forward, and then let's make a decision. I know that there are people that are opposed to this. There are many others that do believe that there may be benefits. You know, some of the moratoriums that were talked about earlier dealt with surface routes. The surface route has been taken off the table, and I think many of us heard that when the surface route was taken off, that there would be consideration of an underground option, which certainly this agency is building underground with many other projects throughout this county. It's a viable option. It deserves to be studied. It deserves to be heard. And ultimately, you know, we can't prejudge what the ridership will or won't be. There will be, if it is approved, there will be a financial package that is either viable or it is not. But people are trying to shortcut it. They're trying to shortchange the process and prevent the public and interested parties from hearing what the ultimate results would be. So I'll conclude my comments at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Anotonvich?
A few months ago, we had asked who is responsible for this issue. And Mr. Leahy, we discussed, it's a Caltrans project. Caltrans is the one who's responsible. It's not the MTA, it's Caltrans. We all know that. We know that. The idea that somehow we don't know some of these costs, therefore we're going to demagogue it. Funny, those questions were not asked just a couple months ago when this board voted for the subway, I should say a tunnel in the Sepulveda Pass, where it's clearly undefined, had no environmental work completed, had no known cost estimate, would require private investment backed by a toll facility to collect those revenues. And again, it was a major tunnel that increases demand for use of the tunnel. And yet it was silence. So this is just pure demagoguery. I mean, let's get the facts. Let's have the EIR completed. It's going to be completed in 2014, and then we can discuss what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. It's time to be, you know, you have to be a statesman and get the facts and then attack it based on the facts. But don't support projects without the facts and then again oppose another project on the basis that you don't know the facts. That's why we are doing the EIR. You didn't know the facts when you voted for the tunnel under the Beverly Hills High School. So again, let's get the facts and then we can discuss that. And when we all know that Caltrans is the agency, that's the lead agency in this. And that had been discussed in a meeting, and many of the 710 people who were for and against the 710 were there when that was discussed.
Thank you very much. This concludes this portion of the meeting. We will adjourn to... No, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Arnold Sachs, John Walsh, and Damian Goodman. Mr. Sachs, Mr. Walsh, Mr. Goodman. These are closed session
General public comment. Please, will you get this man out of the way? Ladies and gentlemen, the first person who gets up there, right? Is the first person, Mr. Boyce, the first person who...
Sergeant, point of order.
I will not be
Sergeant,
bullied.
would you just handle this?
By someone who is 30 years younger than me. Okay? Okay, now get your hands off. Am I in order?
No, sir. I called Mr. Sachs and you, and then...
But he didn't show up.
Goodman. He's...
After his 30th time. Hey,
watch your language and please respect each other.
He can bully you, but he can't bully me.
He's not going to bully me.
Are we in public comment?
You're on 58. Yes, Bravo John.
Oh, this is closed session then?